Greetings, geeks. This week on the show, the Race to World first ends. World of Warcraft gets a new 100k tournament, and will Overwatch League be outsourcing to South Korea? All of that and more on episode 124 of Geeks of Azeroth.
Geeks.
About geeks.
For geeks. Welcome to Geeks of Azeroth.
Hello everyone, welcome to the show. Britzza here, and something a little bit different. I am joined today by Draycass, the queen of the Epic Geeks Network.
Hello.
Draycass, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you? I've never been called a queen before. That's quite nice.
Queen, yes, royalty. Daily offerings, that sort of thing.
I'm basically here because two of the other co-hosts are so inconsiderate that they've got married when they should be recording the podcast.
Yeah, SleepyGary and Zor have decided to get married this weekend. Not to each other, to different people. And it's so weird, actually, in a sense, because I think up to about a week ago, we've always joked on the show that they were the same person. And then it got to about a week ago where they were talking about their wedding dates and realised they were actually both getting married on the same day. And so...
It's freaky. Very freaky.
I'm not convinced that... I think they tried to trick us into thinking they were different people, and really it is just one person.
And if you actually look at the photographs, you know, if you just put a beard on Gary and some glasses, they could be the same person.
Exactly.
So maybe it's a disguise.
Exactly. You know, he's just posing with different women to throw us off the scent. I think so. But seriously, congratulations to both of them. Tarley is with SleepyGary, probably incredibly hungover by this point. So that's why it's just the two of us this week.
Can I ask a question about that? Because I got really confused.
About
how come SleepyGary's now SleepyGary and not Big Voodoo?
So a couple of... It's basically because of their guild. So, for those who don't know, I should probably explain this. So, SleepyGary was originally Big Voodoo and had been for pretty much the whole time he'd been on the show to a couple of weeks ago, when somehow in their raid team, the name Gary or SleepyGary had stuck. And as a result, he was getting fed up with trying to live like two separate lives online. Like, it's hard enough having one online alias and a real name. And he just said, well, I'm not going to have two online aliases and a real name. So, you know, he could have got rid of his real name and just changed, you know, legally to Gary or something like that. But no, he decided to drop the Big Voodoo and is now SleepyGary.
Okay, so, makes sense. I thought I was going mad. I was like, who's SleepyGary? I don't know this.
We just snuck someone in without you realising. So, yes, it confused us. I think we're still getting the names wrong occasionally. So, yeah, it's not an easy thing. And real, like, online aliases stick. Like, you know, there are people out there who I still know by different names to what they're called now because they've changed Twitch channels or something like that. So, yeah, that whole conundrum. But anyways, how has your... I don't know. It's been a while since you've been on the show. It
has been a long time. I don't come on very often.
No. So, how was your 2 years or 1 year in Blizzard gaming team?
Well, I don't play World of Warcraft anymore, of course. Which is, I know I'm life just gets in the way, and we had this discussion before the podcast. But I kind of made the decision that I can't do MMOs anymore because I don't get to play anything else. And when I do a podcast about other games and stuff, I kind of felt I needed to concentrate on other things. So I leveled up to 110. And then just kind of stopped there. Although I hear that there's some mechanics available now to help me catch up really quickly. So you never know, I might hop back in again. But
the heirloom system will help a lot if you go.
So you never know. I might jump in. I do miss it a lot. But Overwatch is pretty much the game I play now. Blizzard-wise, it's the one I get to hop on and off. So I play it on the Xbox, and I put it on the PC as well, so that we can do some games together. So we'll have to start streaming.
We will.
Because
we have this. Go on.
We always had these ideas. I did that straw poll on the Epic Geeks Twitter channel and said, what do you want us to stream? And it was overwhelmingly Overwatch. So we're going to have to make this a thing.
Yeah, and we always talk about it after we've recorded the show each week. Like, oh, listen, we should do some streaming like next week. Oh yeah, let's do some Overwatch, and then we never get round to it because we do like an hour and a half show. We're like, oh god, we need to eat and do stuff and time zones. Meh. Cool. So with Overwatch, then, are you excited about Overwatch League?
Very, very excited, and we'll talk about this a bit later. But I remember when we first discussed it when it first came out on the Epic Geeks podcast, and I know you guys discussed it here as well, the kind of opportunities that might come about. So you never know if someone wants to adopt us as an Epic Geeks team league. That would be amazing.
Yeah, if they have $20 million dollars, that would be.
In fact, you could just you could buy me probably for about. $2,000. I'm very cheap.
$2,000. $2,000. Blimey now, I think you're underselling yourself there. That's what it's come to, people. We're back to selling people to big corporations. Jesus. Right. So I guess with all of that, I guess I should talk about my week very quickly, which is going to be summed up a bit of Hearthstone, really. I've been back in my native hometown or county of Essex for the last couple of days, so no, my PC hasn't been here, and I've also been trying to work through my catalogue of PlayStation games. So I've just finished Mirror's Edge. I know it's not WoW related or Blizzard related, but I've really just finished that, really enjoyed it. And a bit like yourself, I found that Blizzard games have become a huge sink for me in the last few months, I guess, trying to stay ahead of the curve with Legion or play catch up really more than anything else. That I feel like sometimes it's nice not to be just a Blizzard gamer. And I guess that's what this weekend's been for me. But I have dipped into Hearthstone. I'm really tempted to perhaps come back to it when Knights of the Frozen Throne releases. So yeah, things are looking good, but I think it's more of a sort of wait and see. You know, we're waiting for patch 7.3, we're waiting for Knights of the Frozen Throne, we're waiting for Overwatch League. So
lots happening.
Lot's happening.
Blizzard's been chucking the news out, haven't they, the last couple of weeks? It's ridiculous, but
it has been really hot, as if they're, and it begs the question, like, what is BlizzCon going to be like?
Yeah, there'll be nothing left.
Well, they're chucking it. And I'm not saying, I don't think it would be a good idea to have kept this news up until, well, you couldn't like hide 7.3 to BlizzCon because it's coming out before. But the situation, I think, is that what big announcements could be coming, and it's leading to this discussion about the expansion. It's making us think about what Overwatch changes are going to be coming. It's just you hope there's going to be big stuff.
Well, it's going to go one of two ways, isn't it? Either they'll have absolutely nothing to talk about because they've already released it all, or there'll be loads of big surprises that no one saw coming.
Yeah, and we might be grateful we didn't get tickets because it could, it could say, "Listen, thanks for all coming, but we announced everything."
So just go and look at our Twitter feed, and that's all I need.
Yeah, when they chuck out this sort of news on a Tuesday, what do you say for your annual convention? Wait and see, because it's going to have to be exciting either way. Yeah. So with that, let's jump straight into news of the week.
Hey, we recording? Yeah? Okay.
News of the week.
Right, here we are, news of the week, and literally breaking news, I think in the last 2 hours since recording this, the race to world first for Tomb of Sargeras has ended.
Dun, dun, dun.
I know, it was, so let's get the stuff out of the way. Method have won it.
Up the
yes.
EU.
Yeah, EU Master Race. Congrats to them, and it was tight. I mean, let's get the main situation out of the way. This is, I don't know if it's the longest boss. This is Kil'jaedone. I don't think Kil'jaedone is necessarily the longest raid boss to have survived in any WoW expansion, but apparently it's the longest since Kata, and that's a long time ago. So, and I know there was apparently tuning difficulties. Some of the ratings were talking about there were mechanic changes halfway through that were hopefully going to alleviate some of the issues, and clearly maybe that has helped in this instance because we finally got him down. But it was getting really tight at the top because I think you said that Method actually weren't doing great from the start. If we go back to Goroth, so let's go through bosses 1 to up to 8.
I seem to remember that they were behind at some point, and I can't remember whether I'm just imagining that or dreamt it or something, but I seem to...
Yeah, well, no, they were. You're right. In terms of EU, they weren't even in the top 5 kicking off. They were top 3 EU, But guilds like Easy, Big Dumb Guild, and Bench were kicking off the race to world first there. Limit snuck into world third for Demonic Inquisition. But if we move up to like Sisters of the Moon, Big Dumb Guild taking world first there. This is Boss 4, Limit, then Easy, then Exorcist, and then Method got into the top 5. So Method really weren't looking like a strong team at this stage. And then by Desolate Host, let's have a look. They managed to take world first Mistress Sazini, which probably was the turning point. And then they pretty much stayed in the top 2. They were world first for Maiden Vigilance, and all the way up till Fallen Avatar, they took world first for that. And then it got really close. I think we got to about between 8 and 12, 8 of 9s.
That's a good thing, though, because I remember in the past, these raid teams seem to have been getting the bosses down really ridiculously quickly, and it's been over like in a flash. And at least this has made it a little bit more exciting, and maybe there's a few more raid teams in it kind of vying for those positions, until Method decided to drink some coffee and get their act together.
Thought, we should probably win this by now. So, and it's incredible. It's interesting to see, actually, Fallen Avatar, so 8 of 9, only one US team recorded as getting him down, and that's Easy. So I don't know what the US is happening in the US. So it's not, doesn't mean the US has fallen apart, but everyone else has a top 5 list.
Yeah,
EU.
The top 5, EU, Asia, EU. No US teams in there at all in the top 5 at the moment.
No, Easy's last of the party in terms of 8 of 9 in that sense, and no one else has joined them. So, interesting to see perhaps how this raid has gone. And it also, in a sense, it's something that I've thought about is what's happening with the raid tuning necessarily at Blizzard, because you've got situations like Emerald Nightmare, which were cleared incredibly quickly by comparison. And then we've got a multiple week lockout for Tomb of Sargeras. So, we seem to be swinging one way to the other. And the fact there were mechanic changes suggests that, Blizzard perhaps went a bit far with some of the mechanics, but still, what is the norm, I guess? How long, Draycass, if you're following a race to world first, how long do you think these things should last? I mean, some people get really annoyed when you have situations like Emerald Nightmare where it's literally, you're talking hours sometimes.
Yeah, that's when it gets a bit silly, because you think, well, these are meant to be the hardest raids possible. If you're getting them down within hours, then you sort of think, I know these are the top teams, but you sort of think there should be that challenge level for those teams should be higher, so it should be taking them a long time. I mean, I don't know, how long has it taken for this one? For them to get 9-9?
Well, it's been about... I don't really know, actually. It's the exact date. We're looking at about 2 weeks. So I'm trying to find a time, but I'm not entirely sure. I will look and see if I can find out exactly how many days. But we're looking at about just over 2 weeks.
That's kind of... I mean, that's kind of normal, then, isn't it? This might have taken longer, but I'm sure in the past it's been sort of 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, I guess it's been at least a week. I'm trying to think. I'm not particularly good at remembering Race to World First, but
we've had so many now.
Yeah, well, there have
They're all
been.
merged
Think
into
about
one.
They do, and they're not necessarily things we keep track of. We rely on the websites to do that, but thinking about it, it's always the ones that have ended in the first couple of days that I've been disappointed with.
Yeah.
Because you're right, it doesn't feel like these things are supposed to feel like I think these things are supposed to feel like marathons rather than sprints. And you're right in saying that if this is the most difficult raid setting you can get, it shouldn't be something that should take, as long as heroic or as long as normal. It should be something that does show a certain level of athleticism, I think. And I know that's probably stretching it a bit, but these events are as much about the stamina of the teams as they are about the mechanics and everything else. It's about how well the team can work together over a prolonged period to keep hitting those encounters. And I think I'm looking here, Kil'jaedone, 654 wipes by Method to get down.
Yeah.
Like, you've got to sit there and think, if you've smashed your head against something 653 times, are you ready to go for that one last time? In this case, it got it down, but you've got to wonder, like, how many people are just going, like, putting their hair out and just smashing their head against their keyboards, and it's an expensive thing. You know how much Relentless and Red Bull they must be getting through.
This is why they need the sponsorship.
Exactly, clearly to get through all the snacks and everything. But that's the thing for me. I like to see that. I like to see just, you know, how far the players can push themselves to do this, because I couldn't do it. I would fall asleep. Well,
I mean, they're doing it full time, aren't they? As well, at the end of the day, I mean, I couldn't take the time off work to be able to do it. So, you know, hats off to them. A lot of them, you know, get paid for this now. They're getting their sponsorship, etc. So they're in that position that they can actually do it. But, you know, I think 2 weeks is about right.
Yeah, and it can show as well, like, just to give an idea of how the bosses have been weighted in terms of difficulty. So if we look at the wipe count for Method, which they've published, Goroth, they wiped twice. Inquisition, they did in one. Oh, sorry, no wipes. Hargeton, 0 wipes as well. Sisters was 15 wipes. Mistress was 39 wipes. So you start to see a bit of a build. Host, back down to 3 wipes. Pretty easy there. Maiden, 73 wipes. Avatar, 453 wipes.
That's when I'd start crying.
Yeah, you know, you've wiped 453 times on 8 of 9. You've got to sit there and go, right, what is in store next? And if you're, you know, getting into the 600s, again, this is my point about the stamina of these people, mentally and physically, to be able to throw themselves at these bosses like this. I love to see it, and I think, in a sense, I'm way more impressed by those stats there than in a sense the title of World First. I want to see how well these teams have done.
Well, yeah, because if they'd done all of those in, like, you know, less than 10 wipes, it wouldn't be that impressive, would it? It'd be like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, steamroll that.
But I think it goes to kind of show how successful maybe Mythic Raiding's been in kind of getting raiding back up to the kind of special pinnacle that it should be, if you know what I mean. From when they had heroic raids, beginning the mythic raiding has just bumped it up to that whole new level again and made it that kind of mystical chalice that people want to kind of aim for, but not everybody gets to.
Yeah, exactly. And no, I totally agree. I was going to add something to that, but I totally agree. It shouldn't be as accessible as that, and in a sense, it kind of brings up the question, like, should Mythic always be this sort of Olympic difficulty that shouldn't, you know, so they shouldn't start lowering it, I think, necessarily.
I think World of Warcraft is one of those very few MMOs or games, really, that have got the kind of raiding system down to a T, because you see so many games where a lot of the players never get to see the final storyline. They never get to see the raid bosses, because the difficulty is they just never get to that point, never get to play it. Warcraft has kind of managed to solve that by having the different difficulty levels, where you can still get that challenge at heroic level if you're, you know, a casual raid or just, you know, raid occasionally. But for those people that want to delve in and do it at the highest level, that kind of 1%, they've also got that challenge up there. But you still get to see the raid and the storyline and everything else at those lower levels. I think that's the best way and the most accessible way of doing it.
Totally. And I am still mostly seeing Tomb through LFR, which, you know, FYI, 654 wipes is pretty standard there as well.
Just on an afternoon.
Yeah, it's just like, get your gizmos out and be ready for that enormous repair bill. But yeah, I agree. The content is always accessible through those difficulties, and I really love how Blizzard has shown that no one feels left out. And the way they've done the way Argus appears in the sky is a nice carrot and the stick to show people, listen, that you can get that nice little cosmetic effect by just engaging with the most basic level of raiding here. So
yeah, I mean, if we go back to other MMOs, you know, WildStar, you know how much I loved WildStar. We had a podcast about it. I was raiding in it. It was an amazing,
successful podcast.
It was an amazing MMO. However, the problem that it had is it had that big barrier for a lot of people to get into raiding, where you had this long quest line, a lot of grinding to be able to even access the raids, to the point that people went, oh, I'm not doing that. You know, I've leveled my character up, that's fine, but I don't want to do this this big barrier have to. And I know why they did it. They were trying to go back to the old days of Warcraft, where you used to have those kind of barriers to raiding and make it that elusive thing. But they lost a lot of the player base because of that. And that's, I think, where that MMO fell down. And, it's still going now. It's free to play. I did a poll the other day on the Geeks of Nexus Twitter, which is, I still have it just there as a thing in the background. I thought I'll just see how many people are still raiding in WildStar. And I put this up. How many people are you still raiding in #WildStar? And I think it was about 30 votes in it, which is quite high, I think, for a Twitter poll. And I think it was 12% said yes, 12% said no, and everybody else said I'm not even playing WildStar anymore. Which I think, I know it's like a few years down the line, but their player base is just plummeted. I think it's a real shame because it was a really fun MMO with lots of fun mechanics. It was really interesting raiding, but the majority of people never got to see it.
Yeah. And was it just a gear grind, or was it like an achievement system?
It's an achievement system, yeah.
And I think Blizzard, I know they tried to bring certain levels of achievement back. Well, I guess in a sense, achievement does exist in the form that there are certain dungeons in Legion, for example, like Court of Stars, that you can't do without doing the certain quest lines. But yeah, there's still a massive wealth of content. That boarded off content is far in the minority. So yeah, and if anything, WoW has never been more accessible. I think going back to what you said about leveling and heirlooms, you're grinding up a character or getting an ult up has never been simpler or as easy. It's very quick now. I think Tarley got most of his characters up now in about 8 hours.
I know, it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
and I've got another one to 110, another one to 110.
What he's done now, FYI, Tarley is now 12 of 12 on level 110s for classes, that is. So whether he's going to do the insane and start leveling up multiples of classes, I don't know. I don't know why you would necessarily. Maybe
old Titus.
Yeah, it could be. You might want to do like another faction. Might want to come back to the Alliance. I suggest you do, Tarley. Come back to the side. Cool. Anyway, so we've been lingering on this topic for a lot, but is there anything else, Draycass, to...
No, I think that's it. I think we've covered it all.
Yeah. So really well done to Method, and good luck to the rest of the teams who are pushing through. There's still a lot of them, and congrats to everyone taking part, because, as I said, it's the performance and the stamina of these teams that I really do applaud more than anything else.
I want Scrub Busters to get 9 out of 9 next, just because their name. It's amazing.
I like really the Dumb Guild one.
Yeah,
the Dumb Guild. I love that. Right, moving over to Hearthstone. So Ben Brode, game director for Hearthstone, recently did an Ask Me Anything on Reddit. They're doing more of these things. They're doing quite a lot of Reddit activity, and I guess for them it's when I first heard that they were moving content over to Reddit, I got a bit nervous because I thought, okay, it's an interesting forum to collect feedback from. But I guess that's where a lot of the audience are.
Very active community.
Exactly, and you think about like the World of Warcraft forums, they're great, but sometimes I think I've only posted on a World of Warcraft forum twice, whereas I've posted on Reddit, considerably more times. So I think it's fair to say that they're realizing they need to actually go out of their own territory to actually get some feedback and get some engagement, which is really good. So he had an Ask Me Anything, and I didn't actually take part in it, but we do have a really nice summary that was put together by Hearthstone. And I'm going to blitz through this. By all means, click the link in the show notes if you want to go through into the detail. But the main points I would draw on are that we're not going to see any card spoilers until July 24th. So we're looking at about just over a week until we start to see some cards coming through. No console support planned at this time. They say it's easy enough to play on your phone and tablet. And to be honest, I probably agree with
enough. Yeah, they have to spend a lot of money with developers and everything else, and getting onto a console. They don't really need to, because it's on your phone. Can't get much more accessible than that. And I think it's perfect for mobile, isn't it? That's the thing. It's not. I don't think it's really a game you need on console.
No, and to me it doesn't make sense. I've got an iPad here on my right, and I've got my PlayStation 4 Pro on my left. I want to play some Hearthstone. 2 clicks will get me in on my iPad, and I've got to boot it up and sign in and do an update. Or you have to do an update on the iPad. But yeah, I don't think it screams accessibility, especially when, and touching on this point, they talk about average game time is 7.5 minutes, which is a really nice area for them.
Yeah.
When you're talking about a game where it's supposed to be quick ins and quick outs, you don't really want to have console loading times and everything. So
I guess that question might be asked because Gwent's come out, hasn't it, now on the consoles? So that could be why that question's being asked. But I think potentially if Gwent hadn't have come out, people probably wouldn't even be asking that question.
Do you think Gwent is a good challenge to Hearthstone? Do you think it will?
I haven't played it. I had a free beta access, which I kind of jumped into very, very quickly. So I can't really comment on whether I think it's a good challenger to Hearthstone. But it has got a very big following, so I know lots of people are going to be jumping in. But I guess without them being on the console, then there's not really that comparison, is it, for them? So
I guess so. Yeah, you're right. And I think Blizzard, with a lot of the PC console overlap that Blizzard is doing at the moment, I don't think they're afraid that they're going to start losing chunks of the market. They're controlling a lot of it at the moment. But as you say, when Gwent got announced at E3, what was it, just over a year ago? Might have been the E3 before that. The hype, I think, certainly got Blizzard's attention because it's a game that potentially could stick around for a lot longer. It might not necessarily be it might not have what I guess we call wild star syndrome.
Stability.
Yeah, exactly. So coming back to the AMA, he spoke about more details on making more stats available to players will hopefully come later this year, which is interesting. It's kind of a theme. You'll see that there's more stuff coming. That stuff's coming in the future. They talk about I'm jumping ahead of myself here, but they've already started planning, getting the designs together for the next expansion coming at the end of the year, and also their 2018 plans. So a lot is in the works, as you would expect with Hearthstone, but it's certainly not, everything's on Knights of the Frozen Throne. They are already putting everything together for the stuff ahead. No plans for content from other Blizzard titles in the game outside of Tavern Brawl or card backs. So you're not going to start seeing Tracer or StarCraft heroes popping in, or Zerg abilities coming in. It's strictly going to be World of Warcraft.
I think that's a good thing. Yeah, it does make sense because it's Hearthstone, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's a Warcraft game, and I know you have Heroes of the Storm, haven't you? Where your Warcraft is over. You don't need to do that in Hearthstone.
And it would just it would get horrendously more difficult to balance, and it would get messy. Exactly. If you've got like 9 Warcraft heroes, 9 StarCraft heroes, and it wouldn't make sense. You're right. It'd be Heroes of the Storm, the TCG, and if they wanted to do that, they would have done it. So,
isn't it amazing though how this little kind of game that was this idea of someone in the office once is just suddenly taken off like this to be one of their most successful games
for Hearthstone? Yeah. I I collected the physical TCG when that was done by, I can't remember which company did it. I was going to say Fantasy Flight Games, but it's definitely not them. But I remember collecting that and playing that, and it was so fun, and it had a huge, huge following. And then it died off, and obviously Blizzard then thought, well, we can keep it alive and make more money by bringing it online, and that's the fantastic thing about it. It really is, just a really well put together game. Really well put together. So, what does he talk about? So the reason for the delay between announcement and card reveals that we're seeing is due to feedback that people were saying that apparently hype was dying towards the release of an expansion because the spoiler periods were so long. So they've decided to hold back on the stuff there. As I said, they're finalising the design for the year's 3rd expansion and working on the first set for next year and brainstorming ideas for the 2nd 2018 set. So they're already looking about a year ahead for expansions, which is really, really cool. And the rest of it is just quite technical stuff, to be honest. So I'm not going to go into it in too much detail, but he then gets into a huge discussion about pizza and what his favourite pizzas, things like that. So it really wasn't Ask Me Anything. It's awesome.
People obviously started getting bored and went on that and just went, yeah, just tell me what your favourite pizza is. Whatever. It's interesting that point about the delays between announcements and everything else because of the hype dying. And I think if you look at the way that Overwatch handles it, they've got it probably right. 1 minute they reveal a little teaser and you think, oh, okay, we might hear something then in a couple of weeks. And the next day, the actual announcement comes out. It's like really quick. So they kind of they make the announcement before the hype even has a chance to kind of build, really, don't they? So, yeah, slam it in your face before you know what's going to happen.
Yeah, you see something like on Twitter, you're like, oh, that sounds interesting. Bang! Spend $50 now. Wait, what? I will jump back actually on myself when it comes to game modes. So they talk about spectator mode as a place where they can definitely work on improvements. No card rotations will happen outside of the Hearthstone New Year. Wildcards won't get a reduction in dust costs. They think bringing back these cards for the sale will make it more accessible. Details to come about changes to arena rewards. They'll be addressed in the coming patch. And nothing to say right now about tournament mode, which is interesting. So I imagine it's almost certainly in the workup, probably maybe for next year once we get a new year, so to speak. We're at Year of the Mammoth at the moment, but yeah, exciting stuff all round for Hearthstone. So I wish I could say more, but I'm not really the technical guy. Oh, we're coming back to it. So 3 hours play, that makes me an expert, right? Doesn't it?
yeah, totally.
Yeah, just about. Anything else on Hearthstone?
No.
Draycass? No? Oh, let's move on to our next topic. So, well, where do we start with this one? So, World of Warcraft is getting a new $100,000 tournament, and it's for competitive Mythic dungeon clearing. So this caught everyone off guard, I think it's fair to say. This is not something people could have predicted or expected. You might have wanted it, but I think it's fair to say we didn't ever think it would happen.
Very clever announcement by Blizzard, though.
Very clever announcement. So for those of you who don't know, what is happening is they have created a brand new invitational. It's a PvE tournament, not to clear raids, but to clear dungeons, obviously, with a $100,000 prize pool up for grabs. So starting on the 25th of July, so that's 10 days from now, I believe, 9 days from now, you will be able to compete in a 2-week proving ground period where you'll aim to post your best scores while clearing Mythic Keystone dungeons. When those 2 weeks are up, the 8 top scoring teams from Americas, Europe, China, and Asia Pacific will advance to the final pool of 32. And then the showdown will take place one day in September, in which the qualifying teams will race a series of elimination rounds to determine the eventual winners. And it's all going to be broadcast on Twitch. So, firstly, to get this out there, the speed of this is incredible. So they've announced this in July. And we'll have winners by September, which is ridiculous if you compare it to things like Overwatch League. I know there's a slight difference, but Overwatch League was announced several years ago, and we're going to see it at this year. Whereas Blizzard's here, like, let's do something with 100k and some, here it go. Let's
and done in a couple of months.
Exactly, which is incredible. So,
do you know how? So the initial kind of proving period. Is that done automatically, or have you got to physically enter or post your time somewhere?
So there is an entrance mechanic, not an interesting. I'm pretty sure there's a form, but it seems to be a combination of both. You seem to have to almost formally apply, and then Blizzard will draw the data somehow. Admittedly, the frustrating thing is I haven't got the link in front of me where I got that from, so I could be making it up maybe, but as far as I remember, it is a bit of both in that sense. But go on.
The great thing about this is it's open to everybody in that respect. If you've got the time and the team available, you can just go at it and see if you can get this. But also, with it being streamed on Twitch and it being dungeons as opposed to raids, it's going to be great advertising for Warcraft to kind of say, look, we're not just about raids and PvP. This is also the other content that we've got that you can come in and play at this level. So it's very clever.
It is. And again, it goes back to this question of accessibility. There are so many people out there who are really good at Mythic Keystone Dungeons. Like, have got it down to an art form. And this is a chance to reward those people who are getting really good in that element. And I guess the other side of it is that if you think about the when Legion was in its sort of beta phase, or I guess it was probably nearer to alpha, when they were showcasing the dungeons, they were doing these races between Europe and North America, and they got a lot of attention because I think it wasn't so much about the dungeon. I think it was about the idea of the race. You know, people behind Team Europe and Team America. And I think Blizzard caught that and thought we could probably really get some interest behind World of Warcraft on that. And we talked on the show previously about how WoW PvP struggles. And it's unfair in some respects because I think WoW PvP hasn't been supported as well as perhaps Blizzard would have liked it to. But it's a really small scene. It doesn't have a lot of presence at BlizzCon. They don't really... They put money behind it, but I think it's almost like a gesture. I think the money behind it is because it's World of Warcraft, not because of how confident they feel in its ability to pull audiences and things like that. So to have this, I think, is really going to help the eSports image of World of Warcraft. And in some sense, I think it might overtake PvP because the issue with PvP as an esport is that we've talked about it before. It's hard to watch. It's hard to make sense of what's going on.
If you don't play Warcraft, or in fact, sometimes even when you do play Warcraft, it's hard to actually know what's going on in a PvP match. It's not like Overwatch, where you can see what's going on in Overwatch, even if you don't play it. You know, people are shooting each other. Brilliant.
Yep.
But with Warcraft PvP, it's really hard to know what's going on behind the mechanics and, you know, what's happening. So, you know, with this kind of thing, it's just a race, you know. First one to the end gets there.
Exactly. And it's got that added dynamic as well where presumably teams are going to be thinking about different class team comps and different specs. So I know that plays out into the PvP scene, but in some ways, because there's more components, there's more players. You know, it's not a 3 versus 3. It's a 5 player brawl run through. You know, it gives a bit more discussion about mechanics and how teams beat them and take advantage of them. And also as well in in an arena match, it's, you know, you kill the enemy teams. With the dungeon, you know, you can think about shortcuts, or you can think about the best ways to take down bosses and things like that. So there's that as well, which
you get good commentators on there who's able to explain all of that to people. Yeah,
exactly. I think we've already said it. It will be really easy to follow, and you can go in halfway through a match and just see what's going on. And team of 32, so there's going to be a huge audience for this if we get different teams from around the world getting involved. So yeah, really nice stuff. I've just putting together the following the link rather to the page. You will at the end of the 2 weeks need to submit your top score using a form. So and you can find that on the World of Warcraft website where they announce the invitational. So it's a bit of a web form. So you've got to kind of put in your dungeon progress. So your first highest dungeon completed, then you need to put your team info in with your battle tags and add screenshots and things like that. So you do have to provide the evidence. You can't just say, I completed everything in like 5 seconds. They won't invite you on that basis. And presumably they'll cross-check it with their server information. So it's a pretty decent pathway in, to be honest. They really thought about it. So, yeah, $100,000 could be anyone.
Go get it, people.
Go get it. And, you know, why shouldn't you enter? If you think you've got a good chance, go for it, because Mythic dungeon runs are, I think, a great backbone to Legion. I think there's so many people who love them. It's, by the sounds of it, taking over raiding. If Blizzard are willing to, you know, put this much money behind it, it seems to be a growing element within the game. So who knows where this could go. Right, any final thoughts on that?
No.
Before we move on? Awesome. God, we are having quite a lot of discussion about these topics. It's great. Okay, so moving on to perhaps the biggest esports league. Overwatch League.
Excited.
Exactly. It's coming. It's going to be here soon. And we know it's going to be here soon because they've announced their first 7 cities. So, it's really, really good. Really, really good. So we've had the first 7 cities of and team owners announced for Overwatch League. They are Boston, Los Angeles, Miami, Orlando, New York, San Francisco, Seoul in South Korea, obviously, and Shanghai. So, and we've got companies like Kraft, the CEOs of people like Kraft, and I can't think of who the others are. I've lost it out of my head. But
it's just where if you read that first line, New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft and Jess Wilpon, Chief Operating Officer of the New York Mets, are among the new owners in the Overwatch League. That kind of shows you the kind of level. We're not starting off, with, I don't know, the co-op or something. We're talking about people that own major sports teams jumping in on this.
Yeah,
which kind of shows that they obviously think it's a worthwhile prospect to delve their money into. And I never thought when they announced the Overwatch League, I knew there would be money involved, and people. We joked about the fact that we could start an Epic Geeks team, and if someone wanted to sponsor us, then here we are, which we are incidentally. Very cheap, as I said, if you want to purchase this. And you did make comments that it would be easier in the EU because nobody in the EU can play Overwatch, and therefore we had a chance. I remember this comment very clearly. I nearly spit my coffee out and thought we'd just upset a lot of people. I think he said something along the lines of that we'd have a chance in the EU league because we'd only be competing against people in London or something. It was a really weird comment.
Oh God, yeah. Well, I guess what I meant by that was trying to save what reputation I have. I get if it was based on cities, I guess we would.
We couldn't beat the Koreans, could we? Let's face it, we'd have no chance against the Koreans.
I think we'd get dominated by a lot of teams from America and all over Europe. But I think it's what I was trying to get at with that was I think it's going to be interesting with the UK teams because whilst I've seen the World Cup team being suggested, something. How can I put it? In the UK, I think Overwatch it hasn't built that identity yet. We're not sure who the big teams are, who the big players are yet. And we're not sure if necessarily, and here's my main point, whether the infrastructure is there to support this in any other city other than London. Like, I can't imagine them announcing like an Edinburgh team or a Cardiff team anytime soon because I don't know if Overwatch has that presence to pull like 300 people together in Cardiff. Maybe it does. Maybe that perhaps sounds like a bit of a silly thing to say, but
no, I know what you mean.
Yeah. So I guess linking it back to this, I don't think you're going to see a London team anytime soon. But obviously, America has had a huge presence, taking 5 of the 7 kicking off. Yeah. They're just huge companies.
It could just be as well that you have to have the excitement, I suppose, the backing of big companies to be able to put these teams together, or at least people with a little bit of money to be able to put these teams together. And whether we'd have a company, we're much more sceptical, I suppose, is what I'm trying to get at in the UK, in where we put our money. So I can see big companies being a bit like, you want us to put money in what? An esport? Nah, not that interested. But of course, it's going to be the big gaming companies, isn't it? That's what we're going to have to. They're the ones that are going to put their money into it, I think.
They are, and obviously now's probably not the time, given what the currency situation in the UK is. $20 million is a heck of a lot of money now than it was perhaps like a year ago.
Oh yeah, and it'll soon change once they realise how many people are watching this and how many people, how much money might be involved in it, and they see how it is in America. That's when companies will start, noticing and thinking, oh, okay, maybe this is something we could invest in.
But by then, Blizzard will up the entrance because it will say, we've got the revenue stream now, we've got the advertising, we've got the whole setup, and now you've got to pay $30 million, and it'll become more exclusive. Because the audiences will be there.
Yeah. So now's the time to jump in, people.
Yeah, if you've got to spend $20 million, just throw that in. And to be honest, they're not all massive CEO companies. They are, I think there's a couple of gaming eSports companies there. Forgive me, I can't remember the names of these people, but they're not all like, Kraft and big sports teams. There are actual eSports people behind 2 of the teams there. So really interesting stuff. And yes, one of the things that I also picked up was Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick he was saying that several factors played into choosing owners. So Blizzard has decided, which bids to take. But part of it was making sure the right infrastructures were in place to sell tickets and host events. And that's what I was getting at with London. I don't know if that's there yet.
That's just Blizzard doing what they normally do and making sure that it's all going to be, at that top quality that they expect.
Mm-hmm. And they don't want to have to do too much work in trying to build that presence. They want to make sure, at the end of the day, these people are buying into a license, effectively. So Blizzard's got to make sure that it now can deliver on that. And if it's not going to try and, sell Overwatch to a small town somewhere in, an out-of-nowhere state in the US or something like that, it's going to want to go where it can get massive audiences, big studios, and a huge roaring crowd to support these players. That's what it wants. So, yeah.
I hope we get one in London soon. Because I want to be able to get behind a local team.
Yeah, well, that's it. But I want to too. I wonder where that $20 million is going to come from. It's hard to say where in the UK it would. I know.
Let's start a GoFundMe page. We can do crowdfunding. Let's do this now.
Yeah, the Kickstarter and what we pull together.
Yeah.
We might get there. Who knows? It'd be crazy.
20 million.
Yeah, Jesus.
I'm sure we can make that easy.
But interestingly, no European teams announced yet. Seoul, I'm not surprised at, because if one country is going to be throwing itself into Overwatch League, it's going to be South Korea. Mm-hmm. So I guess the interesting prediction is what European teams will get announced soon. I presume Paris,
yeah.
Berlin. I'm trying to think of a few other countries in Europe. Jesus, I'm trying to think of
not so much the hot countries, because they spend more time outside.
No, I think Spain and Italy.
That's a really random comment I just made, considering we've got Los Angeles. You know what I mean?
They can do outdoor events, Draycass. They can just put a screen up. But you're right. I doubt you're going to hear from Spain or Italy. There might be like a Rome team, maybe. But silly question. It does come down to economics. Like it comes down to big CEOs being able to say, this is a massive growing sport. The revenue for this is going to massively grow, but you've got to have that money in the first place. And unfortunately, in Europe, certain countries are a bit more tentative in terms of financing.
Yeah.
And also, I'd say sometimes we're a bit more conservative, because you look at the big companies in the world, they want to spend their money on things that I guess are traditional business projects and things like that. If I went up to my company and said, "Can I have $20 million to go buy an eSports team?" I think I'd get laughed out of my job. Whereas, some of these companies, they obviously see it because they're there. They can.
Oh, wouldn't that be? Maybe you should do that though.
No.
In all honesty, maybe you should try and sell it to them. They could be, the first investor in a UK eSports that it could be the next big thing.
Maybe, but
competing with the Premier League, as you said earlier.
Jesus, yeah, I will get onto that in just a moment. But so yeah, not beating around the bush in this or dragging this one out. We've got the first 7 teams, more to come. As I was saying, Bobby Kotick, who's the CEO of Activision Blizzard, he was saying about the reason for choosing the owners, but he also went on to say, can't use words. Here it is. So details such as the team uniforms will be revealed before the league's combine in November, and he expects the season to kick off by December. So, we could perhaps see the start of it trickling through at BlizzCon.
I want a team uniform.
You can get a team uniform. That doesn't cost $20 million. Maybe it will. I don't know. Who knows what the price tag on these things are? But that's the important thing. That by the end of this year, presumably, we are going to have Overwatch League as a running thing. So my thinking behind that is that we're going to probably see the full announcement of teams by BlizzCon.
Yeah, they could do a big event at BlizzCon, couldn't they? Kicking it all off.
Yeah, well, we talked about what they're going to announce at BlizzCon, saying, listen, here's every team that's going to be in the league at the start. That would be a pretty big announcement. I don't know how many teams they're looking to have at the start. I can't remember. Is it presumably something around sort of 32? I imagine to start off with would be pretty cool. But we've got to wait and see who buys in, because it's not under Blizzard's control, so to speak. It's whether teams actually pay the money to enter, which is really odd, because I know this topic's been done to death, but the price tag behind this has caused a lot of controversy as well as interest, in so much that, are you going to see cities that are just shut out? Are you going to see communities that are just shut out entirely? Is this going to potentially damage people's interest in Overwatch just because, you look at football, for example. If one person's team didn't get into a league, but their big rivals did, are they going to go watch that league? Are they going to spend time following it? I don't really know. They're probably going to get quite bitter.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's not true, but to me, I think there are perhaps some people who sit there and go, I'm not going to go follow Los Angeles. Screw them. I don't know who Los Angeles rivals are, but maybe someone out there is like that, in which case you could have people dropping off.
Well, Scott Johnson was having this discussion the other day on the morning stream. I don't know if they had the same conversation on the instance, but he was having this discussion because obviously he's in Utah and they haven't got a Utah team. So he was trying to work out which would be the closest team for him to follow. And that people will have that kind of discussion if they haven't got a local team. Or they'll just, you could just be a neutral and just watch the league and enjoy all of them without following a particular team.
Exactly. There's no reason me and you can't follow New York or San Francisco or any of the teams that are announced.
We could just pick the one that seems to be doing
the best. Yeah.
Glory
how I treat
Hunters.
football, yeah. Just choose the team that's winning, go there, my favourite. I've always supported them. Yeah, I like that. I have a feeling it might be Seoul. So yeah, really good stuff coming out from Overwatch League. The time's ticking. We're going to hear about it soon. More stuff's coming. More teams are coming. Interesting to see how Europe plays out. I'm also interested to see how South America plays out, because I think the picture there could be really interesting as to what cities are put forward for there. And yeah, the picture has to fill. We've only got 5 American teams, 1 South Korean team, Shanghai. It's not a big picture at the moment, so more to come. Exciting times indeed. So, Jesus, how long have we been going?
We're nearly there.
Yeah, an hour. Let's move in.
We thought this would be a quick podcast with just the two of us.
Yeah, yeah. I think we'd be about 40 minutes in total. Jesus. Right, let's kick in with our discussion of the week.
What's a drena anyhow? Can I drink it?
Discussion of the week.
Right, it's time for discussion of the week, and we're going to stick with Overwatch League, because why not? We've talked about it for 20 minutes. Let's talk about it for some more. But no, seriously, what we want to discuss is an article that I came across while looking up some Overwatch League news. And the title of this article is, and if I click on the right...
Outsourcing talent, Koreans in the Overwatch League.
I clicked on the wrong one. I was clicking on the last topic. I was like, okay,
I saved you there, Britzza. Saved you.
Thank you. See, but the podcast can still go horribly wrong even when Tarley's not behind the scenes. But so this topic was about outsourcing teams. So, in case you're not aware, players I'm doing that a lot this show, aren't I? Starting a sentence and then stopping halfway. Let's get this right. The cities are very specified in lockdown. So you have Los Angeles, you have New York, you have Shanghai. The players for those teams are not region locked. Just because the team's in New York doesn't mean you have to be from New York or even America to play for that team. They could email me or Draycass and say, listen, we want you to come over. We know Draycass is worth $2,000.
I'm very cheap, I've said,
Really cheap. Yeah, Brits, we're not sure about you. You've set your target as $1 million, and we've seen your score on Overwatch. We really don't think you're worth that. We might give you a tenner, which I would accept instantly. But it's brought up, this article goes into discussion about whether, as a result of that, we might see teams buying, I guess for lack of a better phrase, foreign players to play in. And in a sense, this makes sense, because if you look at football, or soccer for those of you in the US, we in the UK, we see foreign players come and join our leagues all the time. We're always buying the best talent from Europe and across the world. And in a sense, and I want to suggest the tone of this isn't meant to be, how can I put it? I'm not trying to suggest anything with my tone, but there's a lot of foreigners in UK football at the moment. And as a result, you kind of sit there and think, well, when it comes to Overwatch League, if they're supporting the team, should they perhaps be supporting local talent within those cities? So I'm not going to try and draw out the topic anymore now, but Draycass, what do you think about the balance between hiring talent from other countries and supporting your local communities by getting talent there? I mean,
I can see the argument in football because obviously we have problems with the national teams, with our players maybe not getting enough play time because we have players coming in from other countries who are maybe stopping their development because we're having to buy those best players. So there is that argument there that actually, I think there was is it Germany? I think it's Germany that do it slightly differently, and they have much more German players within their sort of grassroots football, and obviously they do very well on the world stage. So there's that kind of argument there. Whether you have that argument in Overwatch when we haven't necessarily got that kind of world championship problem status yet, if you know what I mean. Do you know what I'm getting with this? I don't really know what I'm talking about. I kind of know it's in my head, it's not coming out right. But I guess what I'm trying to say is we haven't necessarily got the infrastructure there yet to have these big world championships where we're going to start worrying about the fact that the Overwatch League will be stopping local teams from doing well. That conversation might come further down the line, I guess.
Yeah.
I think at the moment when you've got so few teams that have been announced, it makes sense that you pull the best players into those places.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember, I don't know if you talked about it on the podcast or whether I just read it, but about 6 months ago, or even a year ago, there was discussions about these teams actually moving to the locations where they thought the first cities were going to be announced. They were moving over to LA and sort of setting up a base camp there, so they were ready for when the league started. So that's this has been kind of happening for a long time, I guess, already. And I think if you're Blizzard and you want it to kick off as an eSports, you're going to want the best players to be in those teams at the very start to get the interest in and to draw people into it. So I think it's a no-brainer kind of from their point of view to allow that kind of movement to happen. Whether 10, 20 years down the line, if it's still a big esport, whether we're having this conversation and we're flipping it the other way around by saying, well, hang on a minute, our England esport team doesn't get a chance to develop properly because we have all these people coming in from other countries that we're buying in. I might change my opinion then. But at the moment, I think, why not?
Yeah, and it's funny because it's a really odd conversation to have because you don't want to come across like you're being intolerant and say, why are all these South Korean players coming over and stealing our esports jobs?
Not what we mean.
No, that's not what we mean at all. I love that Overwatch is so inclusive of this, but what I'm trying to picture is, let's say London announces it, or Blizzard announces a London team, and they go, here we go, Woolworths has come back and launched its esports presence. Yeah, you'll have to Google Woolworths, people, if you're not from the UK. Has come back and launched its esports presence by buying God, that sounds crazy, doesn't it? But it buys an esports team, and you go, fantastic. London's on the map now, and you wait for the announcement, and they go, here are our players, and they're all South Korean. And you look at it and you think, okay, totally cool, nothing wrong with that. But is there a part of you that goes, I wish that there was more London there, or more UK and that's what I'm trying to get. Again, it sounds like a really bad topic to talk about.
It goes back to that conversation that we had when they first announced the Overwatch League, and we thought, actually, do you know what? We could have a chance of being in this league because we're in the UK. We won't be competing against the big Korean teams and the big American teams. Yeah. And actually, when you had this conversation, you start thinking, oh, well, maybe we would be competing against the Korean teams because they could come over and compete within the London league. So that's when you have that conversation again.
Someone could buy another city in Manchester or Birmingham and put together a team that had the best foreign players, and yeah, you're right. Then if there was an entirely London-centric team, it could potentially get stomped. And not necessarily, we could have some of the best players there. Who knows? But it's an interesting one.
Maybe they have to do that. Like again, a lot of I know they do it in cricket and a lot of other sports, where they say if you've got a local team, a proportion of that team has to be from the local community. So they could introduce something like that, whereby they say if you have a London or a UK based team, then a proportion of the player base has to come from that country. But then you can also import talent from other countries. That could be a way around it. Yeah,
no reason why not. I mean, I don't know what the team size, whether there's a limit to them, because obviously you've got 6 players on a Overwatch team. I don't know whether you're technically allowed to have, say, 12 players and you rotate them around for different events.
Like a squad.
Like a squad, effectively. I presume that there are rules to allow that, because it wouldn't make sense to have the same 6 players, because if one of them gets injured or sick, then you're stuffed.
Repetitive strain injury.
Yeah, well, it possibly is a thing. Who knows? You look at, leg injuries for footballers.
Hamstring,
Hamstring,
Repetitive strain's got to be the equivalent, isn't it, of a hamstring injury?
Yeah. But, carpal tunnel. Rolling on the stadium stage.
Just think about this conversation that we're having there at the moment about potential transfer markets of an e-sport for a league. If you go back to the games we were playing 10 years ago, when I first started playing Warcraft, for example, I would never imagine that I'd be sitting on a podcast having a conversation about transfer markets in an e-sport. Just think about how far it's come and how far Overwatch has taken esports on its own, pretty much.
And that is a really good point. Overwatch is the one that is really having this discussion right now, and that says a lot about the influence of Overwatch. That it's because of Overwatch we're talking about transfer windows. I don't know that existed in StarCraft and things like that, but not necessarily StarCraft. So I don't know where I got that from. I presume League of Legends. Sorry, and
other
Dota. Other esports, must have it. But yeah, I think Overwatch definitely set a new tone for the discussion, given how wide and how heavy it's going with some of this. But we could flip it. Let's flip it, and without going into the politics, let's look at the situation in the UK. So there's the big talk about Brexit and how that's going to completely wreck our football scene, because all these foreign players we've got as part of these teams will now have to apply for visas to work in the country. And as a result, the thought is that all these players are going to have to leave. So bringing it back to Overwatch, what happens if the rest of the world is trading players and London can't get them because, the South Koreans or the Europeans or the Americans don't want to have to get visas or can't get visas? Because, you look at our government, I can't see playing computer games very high on the, customs entry form saying why you want to come work in this country. I want to play computer games. What happens in that situation? Does the UK get left behind? Apologies to everyone else who perhaps thinks this is a bit of a weird topic, but some could seriously damage our chances in the Overwatch League if we're not careful.
I don't think necessarily that our visa system is going to be any different to other countries' visa systems. I mean, Australia would probably have exactly the same conversation where trying to get a work visa in Australia is really, really hard unless you meet a certain employability status. But I don't think that football teams have ever necessarily had that problem when they've been getting players from outside of the EU. They always seem to manage to get visas for players from South America and places like that. So I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe not. It's a hypothetical, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know enough about our future visa system to kind of know whether we're going to say, no, if you're an eSport player, you will not be coming in.
No, maybe not. You're right. It's too much in the air for that. But it's interesting that if we consider Overwatch as an esport and we consider esports as a sport, then potentially the same conversations that are affecting football affect Overwatch, and that seems to be one of them at the moment. But really interesting topic. We'll wait and see, like you say, to see what happens. It hasn't really had enough time to set the tone yet, and if one team starts doing it too much, you might see a backlash, maybe, or maybe not. Who knows? But we have to stress that the inclusivity of Overwatch League is something to really be celebrated. And why shouldn't you have players moving around in different teams? I'm not suggesting for a minute you should have like an entire New York team made up of just New Yorkers, or LA for just LA. But whether you could make a whole team for a city made up of foreign players is an interesting one.
What would be really interesting is if they start having academies in these cities. Do you know what I mean? Like football, they have football academies. Like you have all the young players that come up through the Manchester United ranks, for example, and things like that. You could potentially see, the future of esports being similar if you started having these, North Korean Overwatch academies where you could join at if you started showing a lot of talent at the age of 10, you get bought out by these teams and kind of nurtured over the years.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That would be amazing, and I could see it happening as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's almost definitely going to be there, because why wouldn't you? If you're spending this amount of money on a hypothetical success, at the end of the day, these companies think they know what esports is going to look like and how much money it's going to make, but at the moment they don't really know. No one really knows what it's going to do.
Isn't it? It's a gamble.
Yeah, it's a gamble. It is, totally. But if you're willing to put $20 million in a gamble, how much money are you going to put in it when you know it's a massive success?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think academies are going to be one of them, because if you haven't got that pipeline of talent, then your team's on a ticking clock, isn't it? And then they're going to have to come back to us Londoners who, for 2000, whatever you said, 200 by that point, we might go down in estimations. But yeah, I definitely see academies. It'd be interesting to see though how they are set up, because I get the impression from what I see in the US, for example, that companies can sponsor universities and colleges for certain programs. So whether they're actually part of the established universities, because we talked a couple of weeks ago about how one university in the UK is doing an esports.
Yeah, you could get an esports scholarship.
An esports scholarship to University of, I don't know, I'd say Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Just plucked one out of the air. I've no idea if they're a good place to go for esports. So technology, it must be, mustn't it? But yeah, would that be a sponsored program, or would you almost join a separate entity altogether? Who knows? Because why could that, in a sense, I think if it went with the former and it was part of a university program, that would really push the conversation about esports becoming sports in a new direction. Or not necessarily a new direction, but it would certainly push the conversation forward, because you'd have people on basketball programs where they've got to get a certain, GPA to play and compete. And you'd have esports players standing right next to them doing the same thing, having to get certain GPAs in certain subjects in order to compete, and, working through the university system. So
probably sitting right next to them, to be fair.
It's probably sitting right next to them. Yeah, just one's got a controller in his hand and the other one hasn't. It's got a ball or something. So yeah, interesting to see. And it's the cultural impacts of this are huge, absolutely huge.
Yeah.
And wait to be seen what happens, what the teams look like, and as you say, what this transfer system looks like, because it could get really interesting.
Why didn't this happen when I was younger? This is really unfair.
Just still be part of this, As we said, the UK hasn't decided yet.
Let's face it, if I started playing Overwatch when I was 9, I'd be considerably better at it than I am now.
Yeah, I think you'd be chancing quite a lot on it as well. I think. Who knows? I think talking to you, there's certainly a lot of interest that could build in the UK. Yeah. I know esports is a really odd topic in the UK, because we're one of these countries where people get esports, but like the major institutions don't. Like we talked before the show about how the BBC reckons that Overwatch could possibly get bigger than the Premier League, which is a crazy claim if you think about how much money the Premier League makes and what it does. But companies like the BBC, established companies that could have this money, are just getting their heads around the fact that people can make money playing video games. That's where we are. I think when we see the US taking off and you see massive television broadcasts, then that's when you'll see the conversation in the UK really take off.
It'll be a topic on the One Show.
It'll be a topic on the One Show. Exactly. I mean, what was it? The League of Legends final was on BBC 3. So a couple of years ago, and that was like a huge step forward for us. People were questioning like, what's happened to the BBC? They're playing like video games on TV. So, hey, who knows? Who knows?
We have a panel show quiz about it. Come on, go 8-bit. Computer games are becoming, it's getting noticed in the UK at last. My childhood was not wasted.
No, well, if you're playing Overwatch, it might have been better. Playing a game that wasn't around, that would have been better. Anyway, so let's wrap it up there because we've been going on for a heck of a long time. And it's probably my fault. Any last thoughts on?
No, I'm just happy I could fill in on this weekend of wedding madness and happiness.
Yeah,
and congratulations again to Zool and Gary for their marriage.
Their marriages. Congratulations. Long may they last, and see you guys next week for the show because you're married to this thing. Really, the weddings were just second in comparison.
I do hope that was in the vows.
Well, that's what I hope so. I take you to podcast and game away and all that sort of stuff. I wonder what Blizzard vows would look like. I wonder if anyone's ever done them. They must have done. Anyway, so I'm getting distracted. No 20 questions, because I thought it'd be really weird me quizzing Draycass about stuff that I probably don't know about. So
I definitely don't know about.
It was Nick Fist, by the way. So we'll wrap up the show. Draycass, I guess, give you the chance to any shout outs you want to give or anything you want to say before we close the show.
Well, we have our Discord channel now, of course.
Yes.
Epic Geeks has a Discord channel where you can come along and join the Geeks of Azeroth channel or the Epic Geeks channel or the whatever else channels we open up in the near future. And I will be putting a link up on the Epic Geeks website, but at the moment, if you go to Twitter, either the Epic_Geeks Twitter or the Geeks of Azeroth Twitter. What's yours? Is it just Geeks at Geeks of Azeroth?
Yep.
Yes, at Geeks of Azeroth. There is a link on there. We tweeted it out yesterday, I believe, or the day before. So just hop in there, click on the link, and you can come in and chat to us in the community. So we want to create a space where the Epic Geeks community can go and have a chat. So come along. And then in the future, we're going to have the voice channels open so people can just hop into the podcasts. So go join.
Weird and wacky stuff. It's all going to be happening. And I will pin that to the top of the Geeks of Azeroth Twitter. So just go to the top. You'll find all the details there. Come in, join the discussion. Don't be afraid to come in and just see what's happening, say hello. And as you said, Draycass, we're going to possibly be shifting over to that a little bit more for our streaming, podcasting, and just getting in contact with the community because we want to do more of that. And on top of that, we're really doing some new stuff. So we've got some guest segments lined up. We know our guest segments get a bit sporadic sometimes, so we're trying to make a more regular thing, and we've got some guest segments that are starting to form, which is really exciting. I'm going to, as we said, make them more regular, so you guys can hear less of me, which is always a good thing. And also we've got some new looks coming, so we've done, and some new sounders with perhaps one pretty famous voiceover artist within the Blizzard community. We'll wait and see who they are. And that's about it, really. I'm going to wrap up the show because, I'm running out of energy. All this Overwatch talk has got me excited. I think I should be playing Overwatch right now. So, listen, thank you all very much for listening. Our show, as always, is available on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and Twitch. It's also available on Google Play and possibly even Spotify soon. That's a thing that's happened in the last week.
They finally got their podcasting thing out of beta. It's been in beta for ages and ages and ages, and it's finally opened up. So once we're on Spotify, we'll let you know. But some exciting stuff happening there. You can also catch us on Twitter, obviously at Geeks of Azeroth. You can catch me at Britzza_EG. Draycass, where can I find you? Find me at Draycass, DRAYCASS.
Awesome. And you can always contact the show with your messages, questions, shout-outs, bids for Draycass as any Overwatch player. All of that, go to geeksofazerotheg@gmail.com or obviously contact us on Twitter. And remember to check us out on www.epicgeeks.co.uk for more shows. If you ever were a fan of WildStar, check out the Geeks of Nexus because that's a really good show. I think did I appear on that or not?
I think you did come on one, actually.
Yeah,
I think so.
So if you ever thought if there was a game I could know less about than World of Warcraft, then check that out, because I knew nothing about WildStar.
I think you can only find Geeks of Nexus on our YouTube channel now. I don't think there's I think I stopped the podcast stream.
No, fair enough. We'll check it out on YouTube. A really popular show. And we'll be back same time, same place next week with all the married bunch as well, so you can congratulate them then. Until then, have a great week in Azeroth.
Bye.
Bye.
This podcast is part of the Epic Geeks Network. To find out more about our other gaming podcasts, head to epicgeeks.co.uk.